Oi! Congratulations for being invited to an interview loop at Microsoft. My name is Larissa Coelho, and I'm originally from Pernambuco in Brazil. I've been working at Microsoft for over 18 years now, and it's been a fantastic journey where I've got the pleasure to not only witness, but also to be part of the digital transformation that Microsoft has been undergoing. We get to innovate and empower our customers to achieve more while working on a diverse and inclusive environment where it's easy to see why people are the most important assets of our company.
Hola, my name is Gabriel Esparza Romero. I've been working for Microsoft for 20 years. I'm originally from Oaxaca in southern Mexico. During my time here at Microsoft, I worked on different areas, but always in the development tool space, always in the Visual Studio team. I've had great opportunities, I've met fantastic people, and we hope that this video will be a useful resource for you. We'll cover this three parts during this video. What you should know before your interview, the format of your interviews, as well as what to prepare and how to do it for your interview. In terms of the first section, what you should know before your interviews. It's not only an opportunity for us to get to know you, but this is also a good opportunity for you to get to know us. So evaluate us as you're interviewing with us. The process includes evaluating different skills that you'll execute as part of your job. This goes from communication to problem solving to coding ability. Also, you'll have time to talk to us about your previous experience, either in school or at work. Preparation for your interviews is a crucial part of the process.
So focus on preparation. Working on algorithms and data structures exercises will be crucial to your interviews at Microsoft. The content of the interviews is generally purposed for the role of software engineer. So we are looking for strong computer and science fundamentals in your ability to learn. There will be more probing in your actual interviews than in the technical screen you took before. So the majority of the interview rounds will be focused on showcasing your communication skills, problem solving, and coding ability. Most interviews have the whiteboard format for all rounds of interviews.
Here are a few best practices to keep in mind throughout the process. Take some time to go over your resume and refresh yourself on concepts that you haven't touched upon in some time. For instance, if you included assembly in your resume, have you really used it? If not, you might want to consider either practicing or removing it. Be clear and concise in your stories and answers. Make sure that you're framing your scenarios and situations with enough information to give the interviewer proper context.
A bit about the format of your interviews. On-site interviews are a bit different. On the day of them, you'll be first meeting with the recruiter and three or more engineers on the team. Expect each engineer to ask you technical as well behavioral questions. Each interview typically lasts from 45 minutes to 1 hour. If one of the interviews happens during the lunch hour, you'll be offered a meal. And lunch interviews typically last a little longer so that you have time to enjoy your meal. Results are typically communicated within a 1 week period, just right after the interview.
Be prepared to explain what you do at work or in school and what's in your resume. Please come prepared to discuss your previous and current technical projects in depth. Rather than focusing on what your team does, focus on your specific responsibilities. For instance, answer questions in singular, like I did, or I took this decision, or I pursued this, instead of in plural, like we did, my team did. Interviewers expect you to be able to clearly articulate your day to day activities.
Some frequently asked questions. You may be asked to describe a technical challenge you faced on a project and what you learned and gained from that project. Take the opportunity to be very specific about the role that you personally played on making this project successful rather than focusing on what your team has accomplished. If you haven't had any practical experience working for a company yet, it's okay to describe a challenging project that you worked on either at college or on your personal life. You also may be asked about what technologies you are currently using, how they work, and why you're favoring one versus the other. Questions like these are meant to review how deep is your knowledge about the technology you're currently using and showcases your ability to compare options. So please be specific and illustrate your choices with examples. There could also be questions around why you made a given design implementation choice and why you are proud of it. Questions like this can be answered through multiple perspectives. You can choose a challenging scenario that was solved in a clever fashion. You can pick an implementation that has been solved leveraging a cutting edge technology. You can choose an implementation that wasn't necessarily the most challenging in your resume but turned out to be the most impactful. You can pick a design that delighted your customer, and so on. You've got the idea. The important part is to be creative and show passion while describing a choice you picked.
How to prepare for your interviews. We'll cover the following areas: communication, problem solving, design, algorithms, coding, testing, as well as interviewing us. In terms of communication, think of the interviews as technical conversations. Ask clarifying questions. Keep in mind that questions may be ambiguous by design. So scope them and ask clarifying questions to make sure that you're really understanding what the interviewer wants you to do. Start from scratch. Keep in mind that if you want to use something, you may need to state assumptions or say that you're assuming that a library exists or an API is going to be used. Be an active listener. The interviewer may be giving you some tips, so you want to make the best use of them. Be prepared to state your opinion. This is crucial. Sometimes we see candidates trying to guess what the interviewer wants. Um, at times, the interviewer will want you to make a decision between two data structures. So don't guess what the interviewer wants. Choose the one that you think is the best one and evaluate the pros and cons. We want to see how you think. So don't try to guess what the interviewer is trying to think.
A bit about problem solving. When you're asking a problem solving question, what the interviewer is primarily watching closely is your thought process, your ability to break down the problem into small, digestible pieces, to untie knots when the problem is too ambiguous, your ability to stitch it all together and come up with a solution that is creative, leverages the right tools and resources. So don't forget to elaborate and communicate your plan before jumping into the implementation. Also, remember that the interviewer is interested on your perspective. Software engineers need to be able to articulate their opinions. They need to be involved in architecture discussions and propose fixes. Bear that in mind while you answer your questions and double check that your interviewer fully understands your point of view. Also, most questions won't give you all information by design. So it's very important that you don't shy away from asking additional clarifying information, especially when the question is ambiguous. While you answer your questions, also put yourself in the customer's shoes. How would you expect the product to work? Demonstrating customer empathy is key to deliver successful products that truly delight our customers. Note that time management needs to be taken into account too, given the approximate 60-minute interview rounds. Ensure that there is a strong transition from your problem solving strategy into implementation. If you don't have time to complete your implementation, make sure that you at least communicate your strategy on how you would complete your solution and how you would validate it.
You may get design questions. These could be client software or cloud scenarios. This may also relate to past projects that you've done in the past or that you've listed in your resume. First, think of the scenarios that you need to enable. Go over all the data that you have. Are there dependencies that you need to take account? Are there constraints? Cover what you know about the scenario. Discuss assumptions and edge cases with the interviewer before you start to design the system. Draw a diagram. The type of blocks may be different depending on the type of question. They may be components or they may be classes. And once you have this, really validate that the system is doing what you want it to do. Go over the scenarios that you have, make sure that the scenario is sufficient, that it's complete, and that it's simple.
Talking a bit about algorithms, one of the best investments you can make in terms of preparing for an interview loop at Microsoft is to focus on algorithms. You need to have a solid understanding of algorithms and the ability to decide the appropriate one depending on the question. So, practice. Take some time to brush up on your algorithms. Make sure different sorting and search algorithms concepts are fresh in your mind. The interviewer wants to understand the reasons behind your choice. Be prepared to explain why you picked one algorithm versus the other and back up your choice with the proper arguments. Also, revisit your computer science fundamentals. Flip through computer science course books, old projects from when you were at college, or online resources. There's a wealth of resources, such as the Cracking the Code interview book, that will prove to be an invaluable source of reference. You can also easily find online resources that will guide you through mocking coding interviews. An example of a common pattern that it's frequently asked is recursion. You can also be prepared to explain the complexity of the algorithm, the big O. About optimization, Interviewers don't necessarily expect to see the most optimal solution first. If you can show initiative in providing it on the first shot, that's a bonus. However, avoid over engineering or proposing solutions so complex that cannot possibly be completed within the interview window. It's better to have some basic solution implemented and propose enhancements and optimizations along the way than having the solution implemented at all, not having the solution implemented at all. If for some reason you are having a hard time coming up with the most optimal solution, go with what you know. But keep your ears open for suggestions on how to optimize it and try to explain why you chose this route.
In terms of coding, try to make your code clean, concise, and bug free. Of course, it's not always possible to write bug free code, and we know that very well. But try to do it during the interview. You will only be asked to code in the language of your choice, so pick one before the interviews. Try to avoid pseudocode. If at times you forget the syntax of how to do something, that's okay. We're not looking for perfect syntax, that's why we have compilers. Practice ahead of time. We really can't emphasize this enough. Code, and then code some more. Practicing is super important. The interviews will be on a whiteboard. Most of us have never really coded on a whiteboard until we get to the interviews. So practice this beforehand. It's very weird to grab a pen and stand up and start to write on the board. This is very different than when you're using Visual Studio or VS Code or a similar tool to write the code. The board is not helping you to write the code. So keep that in mind. So really practice that. Speak while you're coding. You'll want to tell the interviewer what you're thinking, your thought process. Why did you make a choice? Why did you choose to do a loop versus another structure? So explain that to the interviewer. Sometimes our own voice can be very distracting when we're trying to think. So keep that in mind. If it's too distracting, write a little bit of code, explain it, write a little bit of code, and then explain it. Brush up on data structures. If you don't remember the difference between a hash set and a hash map, it's time to go back to your book. So really go over arrays and strings, queues and lists, trees and tries, graphs, hash maps, and hash sets.
Testing. Testing should be seen as an intrinsic part of the solution. So make sure your code is resilient and capable of handling gracefully all possible testing scenarios you can think of. If you run out of time, make sure that you at least mention the additional tests you would perform before claiming that your code is complete. In order to properly test your code, consider testing it through multiple angles. At Microsoft, you test your own code and you test your neighbor's code. So it's very likely that your interviewers will expect you to do some testing or understand how you test your solutions. So to take the initiative to start testing. And when you put a solution on the board, never forget to test it before you call it done. Take a detailed approach on your test strategy by first assuring that the code includes all the requirements and the basic scenarios works as expected. Take into account all limitations such as restricted memory, environment where it will be executed, or performance concerns, to name just a few examples. Then consider all the factors that could cause the problems. Does the code fail gracefully when dealing with bad or unsupported input? What are the boundaries and error conditions? How can I stress the code? Is accessibility taken into account? What are the edge cases? Do you need integration tests? What are the security implications of the feature, etc.? So bear in mind that some of our software runs in mission critical scenarios, so a deep validation process is imperative.
Microsoft core competencies. Throughout the interviews, we will evaluate how you deliver solutions. Here are some of the aspects that we will look for. Adaptability. We'll try to understand how you adapt to changing requirements. For instance, the interviewer may change the question halfway through the interview. Don't be surprised if this happens. You also may be asked to describe a situation in which you didn't have all of the tools to succeed. What did you do about it?
Another aspect is collaboration. Collaboration is such an innate part of our culture that is one of the main pillars of our individual commitments as employees. The idea is that partnering with others can be a powerful tool to maximize the impact of a project and a unique opportunity to bring others along with yourself on a growth journey. You may be asked to describe successful collaboration experiences that showcases your ability to be an effective team player. Consider partnership cases at college or even at your personal life if you haven't had any experience in a corporate world yet.
Customer focus. We think this is crucial. At the end of the day, everything that we do is for a customer. We'll want to see that you can think about what's important to the customer when making choices. Are you keeping the customer in mind as you're designing a solution?
Drive for results. In many occasions, while you're focusing on a project, a college assignment, or even a personal goal, there can be several distractions and competing priorities along the way that can potentially divert you from that goal. Drive for results questions will address how you deal with these distractions and ultimately deliver your commitments.
Influencing for impact. Think about situations in which you had to take action so that the desired outcome would happen. At school, in past jobs, in your life with your family. What did you do so that this would happen? What tools did you use? Be prepared to provide details.
Judgment. You also may be asked questions that illustrate how you applied your good judgment in the past in an effective way. Have you ever faced a situation where none of your team members are on the same page and you had to use your good judgment to get everybody to agree on a plan? Or have you ever had to count on your courage and conviction to influence others to go on the right direction? Think about it.
Another aspect to consider is what are the questions that you'll ask us? Try to know more about the product, team, and interviewers that you'll be interviewing with. Do they have a LinkedIn profile? As a recruiter for links to team blogs or sites and any information that can help you prepare. Try to know more about the interviewers and what are the areas of focus during the interviews as well. Show interest. All this information will be crucial for you to elaborate your own questions and show that you have done your homework.
Also, get to know Microsoft. It's always a good idea to be able to articulate why you want to work at Microsoft and why you would like to work for a group in particular. The interviewer is looking for people excited about Microsoft's products that are passionate about technology. Tell us why you are interested. Ask questions about Microsoft or what we do. There are plenty of resources in Microsoft website, including a compelling letter written by our CEO Satya Nadella to all Microsoft employees in July 2014. This will help you to get a good idea of our vision as a company and our future direction.
We also have several ERGs. These are employee resource groups that can be a great help as you join the company and as you find your way around. Here are just a few examples. Women at Microsoft, HOLA, which is a Hispanic and Latinx community at Microsoft. Both Larissa and myself are part of this community. Blacks at Microsoft, Asians at Microsoft, parents, military, disability, the GLEAM ERG, which is the LGBTQIA plus community at Microsoft, etc. There are plenty of other clubs as well. For instance, there is a chess club, a photography club. You'll find people here that are like you. At Microsoft, we firmly believe that you can come as you are, and we think that you'll find a group of people that you can relate to, whatever your background. We hope that this has been useful for you. Thank you again for your interest in Microsoft, and best of luck in your interviews.
Boa sorte!
Buena suerte.